Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have my good friend and mentor, Krystal Thompson, with me today. This is the first interview I'm doing in a series of interviews where I want to showcase the incredible women in my life so that you can understand the power of following your heart, following your truth, following your purpose, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's scary, even when everybody around you says that you're crazy, right? I really want to showcase these incredible women so that you can see the power that awaits you when you follow what's begging to come out. Okay. So just for most of you know, I was a diehard employee. I never thought that I would go self-employed. And then one thing led to another. You can hear my story in another video. And here I am 4.5+ years deep in entrepreneurship and meeting just incredible women from all over the world doing incredible work and helping me and me helping them. And just the symbiotic relationships are just incredible. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what's possible for you when you just lean in and trust that you're going in the right direction and that you can't fuck it up and that you're exactly where you're meant to be and you just need to trust. So I'll quickly just introduce Krystal and let you know how we met. So she is a human design expert. Her company is called the Aura Lab, and she is an absolute genius when it comes to energy readings and human design and all of those things. And I'll let her go into that a little bit in a minute. But she and I actually met in, I believe, a Facebook group, and we connected over human design. And she ultimately read my human design. I'm a manifester. And it's funny because I was rewatching our interview. Well, I've tried to rewatch it twice. I've only gotten 15 minutes in both times. I don't know why that is, but every time the 15 minutes in gives me chills. Like for the entire 15 minutes, I'm just covered in chills. And I think it's because in the first 15 minutes, she really, without putting pressure on me, really lays out, why I feel that I am the way that I am. And, I think a lot of people with human design agree that it just kind of gives them permission to be who they are. That's what I felt it gave me, which was so great. So I'm a huge hype person for human design. If you need you just need to figure out at least what you are and get like a basic understanding. But anyway, that beautiful reading led to a 3-month private mentorship that, it came obviously divinely timed exactly when I needed it. We worked through some things that had been really, I'm going to use the word plaguing me. I don't think that's probably appropriate, but that's kind of what it felt like. And then not only did the work that we did together in the time we worked together really help shift a lot of things and help me become more of who I am and step fully into my being and my essence and my manifestor vibes and like the entrepreneur that I'm meant to be. But then the work we did continued to unfold for months and months and months and months. Something we were working on together didn't actually come to fruition until we started working together at the beginning of the year. It didn't come to fruition until the end of the year, but because of the work we had done, I could see why it took that time and why it unfolded the way that it did and why things continue to unfold that way since then. And then since that container, we've also done a couple of inner voice sessions where Krystal, she's just like a magician. I don't know how she does it. She just has this way of speaking to your soul. And it just is like, and it's just, she's kind of just asking your soul questions and tapping into you and showing you how to tap into yourself in a way that I think a lot of people don't realize is possible. And it's just so amazing. So I needed to bring her on here because I need her to explain her own magic. And I want you, Krystal, now please to take over. Give us a little intro. Tell us what you're about, what you offer the people, and how they can work with you, because I think everybody needs a little bit of Krystal.
Thank you so much for that intro, Danielle. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I just love you so much. I think that's obvious, but I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan.
It's so mutual for so many reasons, but something I want to reflect back to you. Like when you came to me and we started working together, you were so willing to step through the doors that we opened. Like even in your reading, like when we started, I remember your reading. It was years ago. And I remember because you have this particular channel in your chart that basically says your soul chose to come early. That's it. Like, you are here to be the
Oh,
messenger
I
of
have chills
something.
again. Oh. Sorry, I
You're
have to
here to
interrupt
be
you.
the No, it's perfect. You're here to be the messenger of something that like will be the norm soon, but isn't yet. It's still
Mhm.
on the edges. It's still taboo. It's still on the fringe. And your soul is like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, I'm going to show up early and be one of the ones that kind of starts this fire on the planet. And that is not an easy karma to have. And so when I saw your chart, I was like, this is important. Like, this woman needs to feel free to share what she has to share, especially as a manifester. So I just want to, like, I'm so receiving all of the beautiful things that you just reflected to me. And I want to reflect back, like, I can open the door. Like, for whatever reason, I have this gift of being able to see someone's karmic path and karmic map, and also their dharma, like what it is they're really here to do on the other side of their freedom. I can just see that for whatever reason. But it doesn't matter what I see if you're not willing to pick up the pieces and walk through the door. So I just have so much respect for women like you that are like, they come up, they show up in my world and they're like, I know I'm going to get triggered and initiated and challenged at every step, but I'm here for it. Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, that is true. I remember even you had kind of given me an assignment, and I guess part of my ego blocked listening to what the assignment was, because then I went off in this other tangent and you were like, well, that's interesting because we could have used this session to do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, fuck, I didn't even pick up that was the assignment. I thought we were kind of like discussing it. I didn't check in our, backdoor area to see. I don't know. I just was like, something in me was like totally blocked off from that, which was part of the lesson
Yeah.
that I needed to learn. So it was just, yeah, you definitely have a gift. Like I said, I've had chills the entire time you were speaking. Like, it's just like so good. But yeah, you definitely have a gift for speaking to the soul, and like you said, finding those karmic gifts and looking past the point of freedom. And that's really, kind of what I want to culminate in the world is like, what is your full-time freedom? It's not even about the money. It's not about the success. It's not about the accolades. It's not about what it looks like to anybody else. It's what is your full-time freedom? What does that look and feel like? And how can we get there? And of course, my specialty is helping you discover your purpose so that we can turn that into an online business to reach the full-time freedom. But the underlying message is that your full-time freedom is available to you. You're not stuck in whatever society has told you is the way that it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
So it's just so beautiful. And you're so beautiful. I love it.
Thank you, my love. I feel like I didn't even answer your question, but I wanted to.
No,
feel like that was so important to say. But the way that I came into doing this work is like pretty. What is the adjective I would use for that? Accidental, like complete, but not really. Like when,
I mean,
I don't actually think any of these unfoldings are accidental, but I walked myself to this work in the way that my ego would allow me. Like I took
the
the path.
breadcrumbs.
Yes. I
Yeah.
took the path my ego would allow me. So my background's actually in photography, and I still do that work sometime out of pleasure, but that was my full-time career for years and years and years and years. And I always wanted to work for myself. I always wanted to have my own business before I even really understood what that meant. Like, even as a kid, I'm having flashbacks right now of like, I was aware of other little girls like playing house and playing dolls, and I was playing office. Like, as a kid. I just always wanted that, even when I didn't know what it meant. So I was doing photography and I was working this job that I hated. I was doing work I loved, but it was such a bad environment for me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go freelance because I am at a place where I can't stay where I am, and I deserve to give myself the chance of something else. Like, I want to work for myself. I want more time freedom. I want more financial freedom. I want to set my own hours, etc. And I was like, I'm just going to play a game for 1 year. I'm going to treat it like it's going to work no matter what. And we're just going to see what happens. And it blew my mind what happened. And so from there, I started coaching other creatives that were in similar situations where they were working in-house in specific creative skills, but wanted to work for themselves. And the more I did that, women were coming to me wanting help with marketing and networking and invoicing and all of the back end of business. And we would do like one session on those things. And then we would realize together, you don't actually need business help. You need help feeling okay to have the life you want.
Yeah.
That's really what's at the core here. Like, you know how to send an invoice. You just feel shameful that you make
Yeah.
money doing something you enjoy.
Yes.
So that just
Mhm.
sent me down into the subconscious world. I studied NLP and life coaching and hypnotherapy, and really understanding how we could think we want something on the conscious, but be completely blocked to it on the
Yeah.
subconscious. And
Mhm.
I just never went back to business coaching. Like, I still work with entrepreneurs all the time, but it's always
Yeah.
in this capacity. It's like, what's actually in your soul? And how do we get that out into the world in whatever container you choose? And if it's business, fantastic. How fun. Let's go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. And this is kind of as a sidebar, but kind of relevant. I remember I was watching one of your stories a few weeks ago, maybe it was months ago now. I don't know. My concept of time is like, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant because the fact what you said, I've repeated it to all of my clients multiple times. It's just so beautiful because what you were talking about was how, and it goes into the subconscious, about how we keep ourselves small to appease the ego because the ego doesn't want to do things that are uncomfortable. Because we are still primal beings in that sense. Like, we still very much are like, I need to survive today. If I do anything that goes outside of what's normal, I could die. So I can't do that. I could be shunned from the tribe. I could not find food. I could die today. So the ego is very primal in that way. And you were saying, that's the tricky part of entrepreneurship because, chances are, especially, I mean, I think you're speaking about new entrepreneurs specifically, but you're like, everything a new entrepreneur does is new to them. It's new to their ego. So every single task, every single day, every single project, everything that you're doing goes against your primal need to feel safe and secure. So that's why, I mean, you didn't say these words, but I'm paraphrasing now, but I think that you were going kind of down the tangent of, that's why a lot of entrepreneurs don't succeed because they give in to the ego taking over because they think, well, I'm not meant to, it's too hard. It's obviously this voice in my head keeps saying I can't, so I guess maybe I shouldn't. And then, everybody around me is echoing that to me too, when really what we understand is happening is they're just projecting your doubt back to you. Right. So of course that's what you're going to experience because that's what you're focusing on. And that's really going to go down another side tangent. But anyway, you were saying in this story that, you have to give yourself the space to just be new at something and just understand that you don't understand and be willing to learn and, be willing to be uncomfortable and just get comfortable with being uncomfortable because to be a successful entrepreneur, it has to be uncomfortable first. There's really no way. And I mean, you didn't say this, but I don't think either of us know any entrepreneur that just woke up one day and was like, okay, let's do it. And then became a millionaire. It doesn't work that way. I think, part of the, initiation process of being a successful entrepreneur is the inner work that comes along with it. And as you know, it's one of the pieces that I avoided for way too long because I thought, well, no, I'm a manifester. I'm a Leo. I have proof that I can manifest. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to try to manifest like all this money out of nowhere. And of course, my ego is like, no, that's not safe. That doesn't feel good. You can't hold that. Who are you to think that? Da, 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 da. And so, I think, and this is what a lot of your work is, or at least it was with me, is just like allowing yourself to, like you said, be who you are here to be. Give yourself permission to do that. Give yourself permission to want what you want. And also, I want to say something else. I know this is kind of going on a sidebar that I didn't mean to go down, but I think it's coming.
Let's
So
roll with it.
we're going
Yeah.
to say it. Yeah. So something else you said to me, we were talking about, I was manifesting a money goal. I know you remember that. I was manifesting a money goal. And when we were working in private mentorship, I'm talking about here, and it wasn't coming. And then you asked, I have chills as I think about it. You asked me, do you actually want that? And I, in my head, was like, what a fucking stupid question. Like, of course I do, because that's what we're doing here. Right. And my answer to you was, yes, that is what I want. But I don't know, something didn't sit properly. And it wasn't until like months later, it might have even been years later. It might have even been when we were preparing to move to Nicaragua, where I am now, that it finally clicked that I was like, oh my God, I wanted that because I thought that's what I should want because of the lifestyle that I thought I wanted and the career that I want. And so now I help women in business essentially. But previously I was focused very much on manifestation and mindset. And so all of the people in that category, are living in well, not all of them, but the ones that I was most aware of at the time are like living in Beverly Hills and living in Florida. And they have these giant big mansions and these, penthouse suites and all this stuff. And so there was a part of me, I realized much later, that felt that I needed to want that because otherwise I wouldn't be taken seriously as what I was teaching. Like if I can't keep up with the Joneses, then who am I to stand here and, teach it if I can't? Anyway, and then, of course, then there's disconnect because I haven't manifested it. So how can I preach that you can have anything you want when I'm unhappily living in the basement suite of my parents-in-law's house and can't make this money goal that I've been manifesting for like so long? And just, I don't know, it was just something clicked one day and I was like, oh my God, I didn't actually want it. She knew
Yes.
and I didn't know and I was resisting it. So that was one of the times I think the door was definitely still closed. But I just realized that I was after something that I thought I should want, not that I actually wanted. And it was, I think, actually in the purging process of getting rid of literally everything that we had, including a couple of pieces of jewelry that I bought myself when I did hit that money goal, because I thought, well, and of course, unconsciously, I'm like, oh, well, I mean, diamonds will show off how much money I made. Like, look at this. I've always wanted this kind of ring. Like, let's buy. I still have the ring. I sold the necklace I bought. I still have the ring. Partly because I couldn't sell it. And partly because I don't think I wanted to sell it. Because part of me, I mean, I still love the ring, part of me, but part of me is like, it's a nice reminder of, I got hair in my mouth. It's part of a nice reminder of like the epiphany that I had, there we go.
Curly problems.
Yeah, totally. Curly, windy problems. Yeah. It was just like part of the epiphany. And it was like, as I was purging all this stuff, I was like, oh my God. And I think partly, I think a lot of epiphanies are like staged, they come in stages, right? But I think part of it was knowing that we were moving here. I mean, Nicaragua, let's face it, it's a third world country and most people here don't have, some people have tons of money, but some people have nothing, right? Like the neighbors have, I think, dirt floor. And so there was a part of this permission that it gave me to not need to want those things because I couldn't really have those things. Like it's a lot more hoops to jump through to have like a Mercedes. Like you wouldn't even, that would be goofy to buy that here because it would get ruined on the terrain, right? And like the fancier things, like I don't even wear my wedding rings out in town because this is probably a limiting belief, but I feel a little bit like I don't want to. The people here have so much less, and it's just not a place that I want to be materialistic, So it kind of gave me permission to just want the freedom instead of the stuff, And anyway, it was in this like course of realizations that I was like, oh my God. And it was like, this is years later, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't actually want it.
Yeah.
You know? And then when I did get it, when I did end up hitting that money goal months later, it stayed in the account for probably 6-8 weeks or whatever, but then it was gone again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's also the piece of holding. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not actually the thing.
Yeah.
We're here to be creators, right? Like that is our natural state. So part of that is creating things and having some completed thing for a short time, but also all things in nature are designed to decompose and turn into something else. Like both are true. But the thing that we really want is the feeling we think the thing will give us. So you pointed at that, like you're saying, I just wanted the freedom. And when I got rid of all of the images that my mind had attached to for what that looks like, then I just gave myself the feeling and all was, and that was it. Like that's actually what we want is whatever feeling we're attaching to the outcome. So in that, I think that's such a beautiful thing to bring up because most new entrepreneurs are going to learn from other people. Like when you don't know something, you have to learn from someone else at the beginning. It's just the way it goes. Until you trust yourself, until you know how to use your own intuition, your own biofeedback to find your path, you have to learn from others that have gone before. But the mind is designed to mimic. So if you're learning from someone else and you see that person as an authority and they have XYZ, your mind says you need to have XYZ to be where they are. It is completely irrelevant and unrelated, but that's what the brain does. So I think this is so beautiful to bring up for people that are starting this journey, because you probably have, as both Danielle and I did at the beginning, this like slew of ideas in your head, subconscious ideas and subconscious kind of check marks that you think you have to hit in order to arrive where you're trying to go. But those don't exist. The real check marks are internal. How do you feel? Do you like your life? Do you feel like you're in your creative genius as you're doing your job? And are you serving the people around you? None of that is about the check marks that the mind thinks we need to hit.
Yeah.
It's such an illusion. That's
Yeah.
such a gift to a new entrepreneur to be able to grasp that and let that go at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're so right. I mean, the ego, and it's funny because I'm studying A Course in Miracles right now. And even in that book, talks about the same kinds of things. Like the ego wants to compare what it sees to what it knows and uses that as proof of what has to be. Yeah. And it's just not that, you know? And so it's funny because one of the other recent epiphanies I've had is I built my business around what other people told me I had to do, right? Which was primarily the business coach. The first like real business coach I had was all about the hustle of the live launch. And so I had this idea. This is a recent realization too. I had this realization that I had the idea that that was the only way to create income. But my nervous system, and as you know, manifestors, we need to be at peace, right? We need more steady. We need, well, not even steady, just things that bring us peace, right? And so obviously, live launching doesn't bring me peace. It doesn't bring me peace at all. And so, I mean, I think there's a fine balance. I mean, there's ways that you can make it work for you. Like for me, what I've realized is if I can get most of the launch done ahead of time so that all I have to do live is the actual training, which I actually love, well, then I get to stay in that state of peace, right? Because all of the other, like I've set myself up. But yeah, I was stuck in that for so long stuck in that mindset that I have to do it the way that I was taught. And if it's not done this way, it won't be successful. And of course, as you know, when that's your belief, that's also what you experience. Like it's mirrored back to you. So then all you're seeing is proof that, well, see, because I didn't launch, I didn't make any money and I need to do it this way and da, 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 da. And so, yeah, like I think I really want new entrepreneurs to recognize that it can be, I mean, obviously there's a fine line between self-sabotage and what isn't aligned too. I mean, there is that. But I think that's one of the ways that Krystal is so beneficial to the new entrepreneurs and anybody in the world is that when you understand your human design and can incorporate that into how you run and plan and, you know, strategize and market and the offers that you create and even the structure of the offers. Like, for example, I know that, I mean, I can only speak to a manifestor, obviously, but for me, I'll be on like a creative high for a while and then I go into rest mode. So I definitely don't want to create things that are going to require me to show up live all the time because I will be exhausted. And then that exhaustion will probably turn into resentment. And then of myself, of my clients, of my business, of all of my husband, because I'm, you know, the only breadwinner, even though that's what we both wanted. And that's like, it's good until you burn out and then it's not good anymore. Right. So I think that's why what you do is so powerful and important, because if people just understood the energy piece of it, if they understood the alignment piece of it, if they understood themselves better and understood that that's all you need. And the inner voice piece too is like so important. So I would love if you would talk about that for 1 second, but understanding how to get in tune with your truth so that you are confident that you can listen to only yourself and you don't actually need, I mean, I don't want to make us redundant or anything, but you don't actually need anybody on the outside. What you need to learn how to do is tap into what you already know, but have forgotten.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I think you're touching on something so important. Like ultimately, your body is here to be your guidance. Like mentorship is a gift. Mentorship is a pleasure. Like we get to lean into working with other people that we admire as a method of expansion. But ultimately, every single human being is designed to be successful, whatever that means to you, in a unique way. So to look at someone else's method, path, approach, in my opinion, is not helpful unless you're looking at it as inspiration. If you're looking at that other person and being like, okay, she did it this way and I didn't even know I could do it that way, so maybe I could try it that way and see what happens, that's fantastic. But to look at someone else and say, she did it exactly like that, and it led to this exact result. So if I do it exactly like that, it will lead to this exact result. And if it
Yes.
doesn't, I messed up and something's wrong with me.
Right.
No, like your
Yeah.
body is the guide. Your
Mhm.
body is the guide, and the biofeedback that you're experiencing every day. So, like the subtle ways that your body, your physiology, your chemistry is talking to you with contractions, with expansions, with tingles, with nudges, with whispers. Like your body is talking to you all the time, and you're connected to source. Like the connection that you have in your body is connected to the freaking universe. So to look outside of you is so
Yeah.
ridiculous. So
Right.
my intention is to help people really find that language and really tune into the subtleness of how the body talks to you,
Mhm.
so that in the moment, when you have a really hard decision or a really challenging experience or a really confusing pivot, which you will because that's what life is, you know how to trust yourself and you're
Mhm.
self-resourced in your own guidance. Like that, you can get through anything. It's not about eradicating contrast in life. Life will always have contrast. It's about trusting yourself no matter how big the contrast is that comes forward.
Right. And to jump on the back of that, to trust that the contrast is serving you in some way too,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like there's always, and I mean, I can vouch for this 1000%. The sooner you can get on board with the fact that any contrast you experience is serving you in some way and everything is always working out in your favor. And I mean, sometimes it's an uncomfortable lesson that needs to be learned, but
Mm.
no matter what, everything is always working out. It serves you. And the sooner you can be okay with maybe not knowing right away what that is, but being willing to just be open to the answer coming into, because sometimes it's going to be apparently like very, very obvious right at the get-go. And sometimes it's going to take weeks, months, years sometimes, but then when it finally comes, you're just like, oh, okay, I understand, right? I understand. And the contrast, I mean, again, you need the contrast because if you didn't have the contrast, you wouldn't appreciate the other side of it, right? Like, how do you know you don't want to be an employee until you've done it and realized, no, this is not for me, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't realize, like, I didn't really like any of my jobs for any amount of time. I mean, I wasn't, what, it doesn't matter. I didn't, there always came a point, you know, a couple of years in where I just was like, okay, I'm done with this. I want to move on to something else. And that kept nagging at me, but I didn't understand why that was. And there was no entrepreneurs in my family. So that was not even
Mm.
like something I was open to. I just figured, well, I haven't found the right career yet or whatever. And then it wasn't until my last boss that was definitely the worst of all of them, right? That really pushed me to that edge. And I was just like, okay, no, like this, after I'm done maternity leave, like we need to sort something else out. My husband finally said, like, look, I don't even want you to go back to work until you find what you actually want to do, like something that lights
Yeah.
you up. I hate seeing you in jobs that underappreciate, underpay, you don't want to go to, you know, the whole works, right?
Yeah.
But if I hadn't had that experience, if I hadn't had that contrast of that awful boss, who knows? Like I probably would have gone back to that job after maternity leave and I would have, you know, I wouldn't, because the breadcrumbs for me, because I also kind of stumbled upon it accidentally, right? The breadcrumbs for me started on maternity leave, and then it was network marketing, and then it was, you know, and I just kind of followed again what the ego will allow you to receive at the time. And for me, I mean, my openness to, I didn't used to believe in God or the universe or any of this stuff. Okay. Like that's, I think, really important to say. And so part of my breadcrumb to becoming a spiritual person, somebody who believes in God and the universe and all that stuff, was watching The Secret actually and
Mm.
realizing all the money that I could manifest, all the, you know, the big house. And I'm not saying I don't still want those things. I definitely still, you know, land in the house and the whole thing. I'm not, but for different reasons now. For now it's because I want it for me and my family and not because of what it looks like to everybody else. Right.
Mm.
So the motive has totally changed, which also brings me at peace with wanting the thing. But this promise of like, oh, well, you can just like think about what you want for 30 days and it'll just show up. And I was like, oh, okay, yes, like money, that's what I want. But that's not that's not how it works, really. But that was the breadcrumb that my ego needed to follow. Otherwise, like you can't just go. I think it's Abraham Hicks who says you can't just go from where you are to where you want to be because it's too much. It'll freak you out
Yeah.
and you'll go, oh no, like I can't. Because if somebody had told me, you know, 8 years ago that I'd be having this kind of conversation, where the world could see it, I didn't know. There's absolutely no way this is,
Yeah.
no, absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
So we need all of that. Like, it all serves you, right? But the contrast, especially, you wouldn't know what you do and don't want, and you wouldn't be able to clarify, because a lot of people think they know what they want too. Like
Yeah.
I said, I thought I wanted the money, but I really just wanted the freedom that I thought that that money was going to provide.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So learning to trust what's really going on and not just following what everybody else is saying is the way, is so, so, so important.
Yeah. And I think such a big part of it too is really normalizing all of your mess that comes forward.
Mhm.
Like a
Mhm.
huge part of inner voice work. So, what we're doing in an inner voice session is opening a dialogue and getting to a place where you can literally have a conversation. It's sort of three parts. It's you, the awareness. It's your mind or your ego, the part of you that is attached, that has fears, that has stories, that has insecurities, and the seed of the universe that lives inside of you, which I call the inner voice. It's these three kind of parts of your being, right? So you as the awareness, you, Danielle, are moving through the world at all times, and you can hear the mind and you can hear the inner voice. And most of us have been conditioned to trust the mind and to not, we don't even know the inner voice is there. Or if we
Mhm.
do, we are so afraid to listen to it because of all of this conditioning, all of these stories, all
Mhm.
of these narratives, that we never even give it the microphone. So when
Mhm.
we do an inner voice session, not only are we giving that part of you the microphone and learning how to create a stage where both voices can speak equally, but we also have to release from the body whatever it is that makes you feel unsafe to hear it in the first place.
Mhm.
And this is so parallel to what the entrepreneur journey is, at least for me and for everyone I know. There are women who this will not be their story, but all of the women that I work with and all of the women in my circle, this has been their story, that their path of entrepreneurship has been their path of initiation, because
Right.
ultimately it is a path of pleasure. It is a
Mhm.
path of freedom. And
Mhm.
that is not something that women are taught to openly want and receive. So
Yes.
when you say yes to your dream life, anything that's in your body that says, hang on, that might not be all right. Maybe we should talk about this first. All of that's going to come
Yeah.
forward. And most people, because they've not been taught how to actually be in their body, which blows my mind. Like, this will be different in future generations.
Yeah.
But right now, we're still in a place where we are not taught how to actually live in our nervous system, which is
Yes.
bananas. But when
Yes.
you are triggered, when you're triggered, when things are coming forward, when your body is sending out the kind of five bell alarms and telling you something is wrong, nothing is wrong. We have to learn how to work with that system and to kind of find the off switch so that the alarm calms and stops ringing. But it's not evidence that you can't step beyond that place, and it's certainly not evidence that you're not meant to. It's
Right.
just evidence that your body hasn't been there yet. But
Right.
it's okay. Like, it's just a matter of understanding how to work with that stuff as it comes forward.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And it's so important because, I'll say, I mean, aligned with becoming an entrepreneur, I also was, I became a mother right before I became an entrepreneur. So I've kind of been walking those two things back to back, hand in hand, I guess. And it's a serious trip, let me tell you,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things that you're called upon that you haven't been called upon before, to be as a mother and as an entrepreneur, and then to combine those things and try to balance the two. And then all the while, like you said, I never learned how to regulate my emotions.
Mm.
I literally, it wasn't until I had my son and I was trying to teach, he came home. This is kind of embarrassing, but I'm just going to say it anyway. He came home from kindergarten with this, it was 4 colors, and you're supposed to put your emotion in the color. So yellow is like anxious kind of energy, red is like angry energy, blue is like kind of sad blue energy, and red is like mad angry energy. And as I was looking at it with him, I was like, oh my god, I need this, like I don't even know. And then I said to him, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be very honest with you, I'm 30 plus years into my life, and sometimes I can't even tell you what emotion
Mm.
I'm feeling, because I was never, not only was I never taught, but then of course we all have our stuff, right? And the way I was brought up and the way my parents operated and the attention my sister needed, and I'm not going to go into it, but the whole thing, right? So it all, and I realize it's all part of my journey and how I got where I am and who I'm meant to be and who my son is meant to be. And, you know, we could go off on side tangents about soul contracts and the whole thing, right? But it is crazy to me that nervous system regulation, like a basic human function, is something that we've not only don't know, but have literally been actively suppressing in favor of, I mean, I'm just going to say it, like in favor of being a follower and an employee. And that's dog next door. That's super annoying. Anyway, whatever. Is it super loud, or can you still hear me?
It's fine.
Okay.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. There's like 7 of them.
But how, like, what a perfect metaphor though, that dog
Right?
barking during this conversation. Like, this is life.
That's so funny. Yeah.
This is life.
Yeah.
Like, whatever the metaphorical dog barking is in your background, like,
that's so true.
Can the dog bark, and can you still choose presence? Can you still choose joy? Can you still choose to take whatever step forward is that you're being invited into? So I kind of love that happened.
Amen. You know, I didn't even think about it like that. It's so true. And just, you know, on a very like realistic basis, you know, if this had happened during a live interview like this, you know, 4 years ago when I had just started, I would have been mortified. My face would have gone red. I would have just thought it was a complete disaster failure. I probably would have gotten off and started crying because it was you know what I mean? It didn't go the way that I wanted. I'm just like, whatever, you know what? This is real life. Yeah. This is what happens when you live where I live, or where, you know, anybody, you know, like, and you know, the wind and the bugs and there's so many lives I've done where like a big bug and I'm just like, you freak out, you know, and it's just like, you know what? This is one of the reasons why I don't edit my videos, is because on top of, let's just go into this for 1 second, on top of all of the things that we're fed through school age and through, you know, from society, and then from other, you know, bro marketing and other, you know, coaches who feel that they need to be this polished, perfect, you know, picture, that are putting filters on everything and editing their things out and putting on, you know, like gobs of makeup where they don't even look like the same person. And I don't mean to be judgmental. I'm just saying, like, my take, and I think I can speak for you too, is just like, let's just be real. Let's just bring it back to being humans. Let's just sit here and have a conversation and not worry about what I'm going to need to edit out later. You know, like that's just not necessary. Like, this is what, if we were sitting here having a coffee up on my rooftop patio here, this is what would happen, right? We would just be, and it's just, now we live in an age where we can have the same conversation and you're many time zones away across the pond, and we can still sit here and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's the same, right? It's just interesting.
It's just about what the energy is behind the action. Yeah. Right? Because like, there are people who geek out and get so much pleasure out of editing videos or doing their makeup or whatever it is, right? But it's just about the energy behind it. Like, if you're doing it because you feel like you have to be XYZ in order to be XYZ, that's something we need to talk about, right? But if it's this like active pleasure, it's something that's been very present for me lately, because I now get my nails done all the time. And this is very, very, very new in my life. When I was younger, I never did. But I realized a couple years ago, I had so much internalized shame and misogyny about beauty and about adorning my body. And so now when I get my nails done, and every morning when I put my rings on, it's this practice of like relishing the body that I live in. Yes. But like, on the outward perspective, someone might look at this and see that I have my nails done professionally or whatever, and make an immediate judgment about who I am and what I believe in and what I care about and all of that, right? But for me, like, when I go into the salon, I'm like, I am saying beautiful things to myself and loving my body in ways no one in my lineage ever has before. Like, there is so much in our lives that can be these acts of devotion to what it is we want in this experience and what it is we're here to break. That's a huge focus in my work and my mission in this life, because I incarnated into a family that handed down a buffet of ways of life that I don't want and that I am here to break. And that is not easy work. And again, I tend to work with a lot of women that are in similar situations. So if that's the case for you, if you are incarnated into a body that has genetic information that's been passed down, that's rooted in trauma and stress and self-abandonment and self-sacrifice and people-pleasing, your life is the arena for you to walk yourself out of that, whatever that means to you. So it's all about the energy behind the thing. What's your why? Like, why are you doing that thing? Are you doing it because you don't think you're good enough exactly as you are? Are you doing it because you are in love with your experience and your day to day? Just like, look at this body, look at this video, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I
No.
think it's so radical what you're saying as well, like to just put something on, record and send it out and be like, it is good enough. And I trust that whoever needs to hear it will find it. And they're not going to care if there's a dog barking in the background because they're so into the conversation, they can't even be bothered to notice.
Yeah, no. And you're right. I probably brought attention to it by saying it when it wouldn't have been noticed, but you know what? And I love the angle you took with that because it's beautiful. And it's funny, as you were talking, I realized I used to straighten my hair because I was so uncomfortable with how curly it was and how frizzy it was. And my friends made fun of me. And I mean, not really friends, obviously, but whatever. I used to get bullied and, teased and all this. And then my husband and I started dating and he was like, well, but I like your hair better curly. And I was like, that's so much easier for me. So now it takes me probably as much time to get it to like ringlet, like to put the product and to do the things as it did to straighten it. But now I make it a whole thing. Like I have a shower routine. I put music on. I was, dancing, and I had a drink while I was doing my hair, and I'm just hanging out. And it's like a whole thing because like I look at my curls and I'm just like, oh my God, they're so beautiful. And I speak love into my curls, right? And you know how it is. You got to. Yeah. Otherwise, they're not going to cooperate for you. Yes. But yeah, so it's and that's for me. That's like me, kind of like half apologizing to my younger self for not feeling good enough as I was before. And half appreciating who I am now. And, and I guess in that sense, it kind of speaks love into my relationship too, because my husband is somebody who loves, and isn't that a true testament to, the people you're supposed to be around is the ones who love you for who you are and not what you're trying to be. Yeah. Right? But, so because your work is so important and it's so powerful, I would love if you would share your most recent, like, what are you working on? How can people find you? How can they work with you? How can they soak up more Krystal goodness?
Thank you. So I have, let's see, I went back and forth on this a lot of like, what is it that I really am excited to talk about and to share with your people, because I know that you work with people that are starting businesses. And my work is really varied. I lean into whatever excites my sacral at the time. Right. I'm a generator. So if my body says we're going to go in this direction, I'm like, great, we're going in this direction. But something I love doing, no matter what's going on and whatever else I'm creating, I love doing pearl sequence readings. So this is a way, you and I did this. This is when you're looking at, it's a specific way to look at your chart with the specific purpose that you're here to express through the lens of a business, if that's your chosen portal, right? But you're looking at what codes. I love the word codes. I just think it's a really visual way to kind of talk about what it is we're doing for each other. Each person has this set of codes that a certain amount of people, a certain group of people needs to be activated in their next step, right? Anyone you've ever been inspired by is an expression of this process. Okay. Each of us has this, right? So our codes don't change, but those who need them do. So that's why we have evolution in things like client base, messaging, who comes into my world and when and why. I love doing these readings because what we're looking at is what your soul, basically, I think about your soul as it's got its beautiful feet kicked up on the desk and it's right, what is it that I want to bring into this life? How is it that I want to impact the collective in this life? It is so cosmic and so beautiful. And to bring light and awareness to this part of you that is innately gifted, it is an initiation. I will be lying to you if I said you don't get triggered in these sessions, but that's part of it, right? Yeah. It is really bringing light to the fullest expression of the gifts you're here to share. And then how to weave that into a existing or new business in a way that actually feels good to you. Because again, we were talking about before, it doesn't really matter how successful your business is or whatever it is that you're creating. If you're not enjoying it, you're not actually successful. The thing itself means nothing. It's your experience of it, your day-to-day life. If you are blessed to be on this planet for 6, 7, 8 decades, and you've committed yourself to a certain career path that whole time, but you've hated every second of it,
Yeah.
you haven't been successful. So, but it's both,
Right.
right? We're
Mhm.
coming out of this paradigm that you have to choose. That's the paradigm you and I were born into. You
Right.
have your pleasure or you have your career, and you don't
Yeah.
get both. And
Right.
you have to choose one, you have to sacrifice one for the other.
Right.
We're coming out of that paradigm. So these readings are opportunities to look at how both of those express in your life.
Mhm.
What is so innate to you that it probably doesn't even occur to you that it's your genius? And how do we bring that forward into your business so that the people you're here to touch can find it and work with it and be impacted by
Oh, I love it.
it?
So,
They're so juicy.
no, like okay. I know I already kind of gushed over Krystal before, but you guys, I need you to like really just understand, like, I just don't think I just don't think you get it. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those, I just like, there's not enough words, to say how amazing working with Krystal is. Like, if you have made it this far in our conversation, I'm going to assume it's because you're like totally vibing with us. And I need you to get into Krystal's world. Like, she will blow your mind 10 ways from Tuesday. Is that the saying? It's like, did I just make that up? I don't know.
I think you did. And I loved it. I loved it.
I'm going to use it. She's incredible. And like I said, I've worked with her in many capacities. I've worked with her human design reading. I've worked with her in, and again, the human design reading, I think, okay, I'm having an epiphany. This is a real time epiphany, you guys. The human design, okay, because I'm a manifester, let me backpedal 1 second. When I discovered that I was a manifester, the only reason I even looked up my human design was because somebody was talking to me about Jovian archives. Okay. And they're like, what's your human design or whatever? And I was like, the what? So I look it up and it says I'm a manifester. Now at this time, I didn't know what the other options were. I didn't know what that meant. I was just like, I thought it was kind of funny. I was like, well, duh. Like, like I said, I'm a Leo. I am kind of high on myself. Like, I could see, after watching The Secret, I could see how I had manifested things like graduating college with honors and my husband and my son and different career things. And I could see it, right? So when I came up manifestor, I was like, well, I mean, that makes sense. But I didn't know what that meant. I didn't really go into it. But because as a Leo, I have a lot of stereotypical Leo traits. Okay. One of them is I'm a little bit self-involved. And so I think that was one of the breadcrumbs. She's laughing because she knows it's true. So one of the breadcrumbs to discover Krystal and what she could do for me and what we would do for each other and how she was going to impact my life was the breadcrumb of wanting to know more about myself, basically. And then, of course, that reading went really well. And she told me like just all the things I wanted to hear. Also kind of laid a lot of like, she's like, I remember at one point you're like, okay, this is heavy though. Like, are you ready? And I was like, I don't know. Am I? And she's like, so basically you're here to like change the world in this way. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to sit here for a minute and like absorb what that means. But it's like, okay. So anyway, she makes me excited if you haven't been able to tell. So from there, that was a breadcrumb, obviously, that led me to, okay, let's dive more into this and like, let's do this three-month container. And the one-on-one coaching, I mean, yeah, it did involve the human design, but that was more just kind of like the stepping stone backbone. This is the kind of the basic understanding. And then let's go into the rest of it. Most of it was subconscious and all that juicy stuff. And then since then, we've done several inner voice sessions because I just can't get enough. And I know that her gifts are just like unmatched. And I honor her friendship too. Obviously, you can tell. I think so highly of, I would love to be able to squeeze you in person. That would just be like a fucking dream come true.
It's crazy that hasn't happened. It's crazy. We've been in each other's lives for almost 3 years. It's crazy that that's never happened, but we'll get there.
I'm adding it to my mental vision board.
Love it.
But yeah, so you need to contact her. So Krystal, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Is it to follow you on Instagram? Is it to send you an email, website? What's the best way?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best.
Okay.
My handle is Krystal Thompson. I should have put it in my little name tag thing like you did. That was very smart. That's where you'll see the most updated offers and the direct links to everything. My website is going through such a juicy renovation right now, so I don't want to send people there quite yet because we're changing things around, but Instagram is where you'll find the most active things.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure that everywhere I put this video, I make sure that there's links to your handle as well, because You're amazing. And basically, let's just say it this way. I know that for you, and I can speak for you too. I know that I can in this sense where people don't just like stumble upon us. They don't just find us. They don't just like, oh, like this girl popped up on my feed. No, that's not what happens. You come across us, you're guided to us when you're ready for what we have respectively, right? And so if I can promise you, if you are still watching at this point and you've been into this chat the whole time, it's because you are meant to learn something from Krystal. You're meant to. And possibly me too. Something we've said has been something you needed to hear, definitely. But just know, like, this is what we're talking about, is your intuition doesn't lie, energy doesn't lie, guidance doesn't lie. And it's 2:22 my time. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there as well as confirmation if anybody needed it. So, you're not here by accident is basically what I'm saying. So, I mean, it's not going to do you any harm to at least give her a follow, right? And just be in her world a little bit and you'll see what I mean. So, Krystal, thank you so much for hanging out with me. It's been too long, but such a pleasure, such an honor. To kick this, I don't think you understand. I'm fangirling right now, but to kick this series off with somebody who means so much to me is like so cool. So thank you so much for doing this with me and for rescheduling, because we already tried to do this a couple of months ago and then I think I upper limited myself. But anyway, it's okay. We figured it out. So thank you so much.
It's perfect timing. Thank you so much for having me. I love chatting with you in any capacity and such an honor to be guest number 1. Thank you.
I love you so much. Thank you
Likewise.
so much.
Likewise.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.